Welcome to Recruiting is No Joke. I am your host, Joe Lalji. I am super excited today. As always, I have a tremendous guest. I'm really, really happy to have Julia on our show. So, Julia Levy, welcome.
Thank
I
you.
I know we've been connecting on LinkedIn for a while, and then we think we met last RecFest in person. I got the honor of being able to host a stage that you were speaking on, and did an amazing job. I think we're talking about like employer branding and how to reach people, and it's a great session. And so I'm excited to have you on the show. But for anyone who doesn't know who you are, I'd love a quick intro, maybe like who you are, what you do, and maybe a brief background just for anyone who isn't aware of you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy to be here. Getting ready for RecFest just around the
Woo!
corner next week. Woohoo!
It's
I'm
gonna be
Julia
good.
Levy, so talent acquisition exec. Started out in recruiting, went into talent acquisition operations for several years, and then into leading talent acquisition teams, global teams at some large Fortune 500 companies. So I am recovering from TA right now for the last couple months and taking some time. And during that time, I've been putting out some job seeker related content because I've got a lot of experience on the inside building and or I'll say improving and transforming some of those TA processes that are a little clunky and wanted to shed some light and a peek behind the curtain for job seekers to help them understand what's going on. And should have a book out starting on Thursday this week, from High to Hired. And I have my author copy
Look
here.
at that. I love that.
Woohoo! And
That's
it's
so
it's
cool.
a big book, but it's got activities and insights, insider insights, activities, some really good examples of ways that college students can position themselves better. And trying to just figure out what I want to be when I grow up. Do I want to go back to another big corporate company, become the next Gen X TikTok star,
Let's go.
or
Do
I
it.
don't have
Do it.
TikTok, but or just
Will
I've
you
also
download it now that it's gotten sold to I think it was Oracle's taken over? Do you think you'll download
I
TikTok
don't
then?
know. I don't
Yeah.
know. People are trolls, and I don't know that I need that in my life. But the other thing that I'm doing is working with some talent acquisition and HR tech companies and helping them go to market better with enterprise talent acquisition customers. So over my career, I've evaluated tech, implemented tech, been on customer advisory boards. And I think there's a big gap between what the TA practitioner and teams know and need and what the vendors are selling and or implementing. So I think there's a gap there that I could play a pretty good part in.
I love it. I love it. And just for context for everyone, your last role was with AutoZone. So
Mhm.
familiar name for many. How, just in terms of like the scope of that work, I mean, how many hires were you responsible for each year? Like, what did that look like?
Um, a lot. Yeah.
5
Let's just say a lot.
million.
Yeah, the company not millions, but the company has 120,000 plus
Yeah.
employees, and being a retail organization, there's some high turnover.
Yeah.
And then I had some teams kind of supporting distribution centers and the stores, but the store recruiting, a lot of it was the store manager doing.
Yeah.
Yep, and then a team that focused on corporate roles and filling those.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. So walk me through, because I'm really excited to talk about the book as well, and we'll get to that. But would love to know, like you said, you started off recruiting. Was that at an agency? Like how did that come about? Would love to kind of hear the origin story there.
Yeah, I got so after college, I got my master's degree in career counseling. And when
I
I
didn't
was
even know that was a thing. That's crazy.
yep, it
That's
was a
awesome.
counseling degree and I specialized on careers. I worked during my like internship and practicum, worked in one of the schools helping students uh, with not just study skills, but resumes and finding jobs and internships. And then also worked for, I was at Georgia State in Atlanta, worked for a program they had called Project Explore, which was helping people with career exploration. And they went through like some individual counseling and group counseling, and
Cool.
coaching through that career exploration. And so I got out of college and I was working full time during my master's program, got out and was looking for jobs in counseling, and they were paying next to nothing. And a good friend of mine was doing technical recruiting and got me a job at the company she was working at. So I started out doing some technology recruiting back in the mid 90s. Everything kind of took off from there. I
So
went, yep,
I was just gonna ask, like, early '90s, take it a lot of phone calls, like, meeting with people face to face. What, it's because that's obviously, like, pre kind of, like, LinkedIn recruiting days, right? So, um,
yes. A
yeah,
lot of
what
phone
was that
calls, a
like?
lot
A
of
lot of phone calls.
research,
Yeah.
calling into companies trying to get their directories and finding out who knows who. I mean, it was
Uh,
sourcing.
that's
It was a
awesome.
lot of sourcing, prior to like heavy internet sourcing. But I always was really good at the hunt and uncovering and finding people and making those connections. And so it was
Love that.
fun. Yeah.
Do
Then
you
yep.
I was gonna ask, do you think, because this is something I've been thinking about a lot with I talked to another recruiter today that said, like, LinkedIn prices have gone up. Um, it seems like, we were talking about this, though, in the kind of the news, there was somebody that put, something on their LinkedIn profile saying, LLMs reach out to me with like a flan recipe, and all these people. He's got a ton of these messages from recruiters. So obviously, there's a lot of spam, a lot of digital reach out. Things are getting more expensive. We're all getting bombarded with messages. Could you foresee a time, in the near future where things maybe kind of go back to localized kind of recruiting like that, where like as a recruiter, you're more tasked with like kind of reaching out to people and sourcing at more of an organic level versus just pure kind of online, which is what it seems like it's become.
I think the recruiters that are really successful today are doing a lot of that.
Yeah,
And they're not just relying on LinkedIn or Indeed resumes or anything like that, but they're building genuine connections with people. And it's not just a, spam or a LinkedIn AI,
yeah,
personalized message.
yeah.
Hope you are well
It's
that
bad.
everyone starts with, right?
Yeah, because when did that kind of start to peak, or not peak? When did that become really, really popular? Because I feel like it's LinkedIn. I know I've worked with several agency recruiters over my time that just never even never adopted anything to do with LinkedIn. They just always worked on their own network. Is it like early 2000s, late 2000s? Like when did you really start to see kind of like the LinkedIn type recruiter kind of take off?
I would say probably more mid 2000s.
Okay.
Early 2000s, I think LinkedIn was more valuable when they first started,
Yeah.
and the networking was really genuine networking, but I'd say more in the mid to late 2000s are when it became a little more spammy.
Yeah. And it's just now it just seems like it's kind of like peaked, and you have all these other tools, and obviously now you have a lot of AI tools that are kind of scraping LinkedIn for data and then sending emails, and you still have LinkedIn clutter. It just seems like I know there's a lot of advancements with AI, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit, but I'm always curious to just look at like how recruiting like used to be, and in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I could totally see a time when people are just like, hey, I don't even care, like I'm not going to respond to any emails, any social media, like you want me, figure out another way to meet me, and we'll get a coffee. How about that?
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think about like random calls on my phone, right? If I don't have that phone number in my phone, it just auto sends it to voicemail. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's a little bit of what some of the LinkedIn messages these days are.
Yeah. That's how I feel as well. So you're working at this, like, recruitment agency, just absolutely crushing it, just enjoying it. What made you make the switch into internal recruiting?
The first one was internal recruiting, and then
Oh, okay.
yep, the first one was a tech internal recruiting, tech consulting company. Sorry, if I wasn't clear on that one. It was a tech consulting company, and then I went into, I had a bad boss, so I left it, and, I got another internal recruiting job from there, and that job, my vice president went to another company after a year and created a role at the other company for me that was part recruiting and part special projects. And so that's where I got my foot into kind of the operations side of talent acquisition. So we used Resumix. I know I'm dating myself probably with that ATS at the time.
Ah, I love
Most
that
people have probably
Resumex.
never heard of it. I don't remember who swallowed them up, but we were implementing
What a
Resumix.
name, by the way, what a name. I could see someone else coming out with that again, Resumex, that sounds
Yeah, we
awesome.
were updating it, and so I was working on that was my first kind of implementation of sorts where we were upgrading from one version to another, and, myself and a colleague, Danny, kind of went on a road show. We developed all the training for the recruiters, and we're going across US and Canada training all the recruiters on how to use Resumix. And then I also created an internal job posting system, and we were doing things like that. That was homegrown, working with the software teams at the company at the time. That was with MCI WorldCom
Wow.
and worked for them for a while, went to consulting for a little bit, doing management and HR consulting. And then after September 11th happened, I wanted to I'd always wanted to live in New York, and I had an opportunity to go there and ended up moving to New York City and then got a job with Robert Half. That was like the job to just
Wow.
get me into New York City where I could survive and pay rent,
Yeah.
and was a division director for Robert Half for 2 years about. And then a retained search firm called me one day. MetLife was looking for someone on their strategic staffing organization that understood that could do some implementations, that understood staffing. They had hundreds of staffing agencies and needed someone to help get their arms around it, um, and understand strategy around talent acquisition. So I had these like pretty unique skills that all came together in this strategic staffing group. So I worked for MetLife for 6 years on the strategic staffing group, and then 2 years of it was in communications. From MetLife, I was part of a layoff and went back in 2010, and then got back to I decided then initially, maybe I just wanna be a recruiter and not deal with any of the politics or some of the BS that goes on in organizations, and so I was doing contract recruiting for a while and was kept trying to fix the processes at this company. So, like, "Oh, have you thought about doing it this way?" Or, "Why," "How about this?" They weren't always open to my suggestions, but I realized if I had to do phone screens day in and day out, like, it would drive me crazy, and that the TA ops was really calling, and that was my passion, and ended up then moving into a TA ops role. Did that at 2 different companies, and then moved into running TA functions.
How
So and I've been doing that for a while.
well, I was gonna say, for a lot of, first of all, we've had, a lot of people on the show recently that have been talking about, like, rec ops, just operations within recruitment. Like, how do you figure out the systems, operations? And it really seems like it's becoming more and more and more of a necessity to really understand at that leadership level. So it's really interesting that you've been doing it for probably longer than most that you really have that understanding. When you moved into kind of like that director level, that, that VP executive level, how important was it for you, or how important has that been to your success to really understand the systems and the processes and those workflows within the work that you were doing? How critical has that been in just being successful in the roles that you've been in?
I think mission critical. I
Yeah.
think on being able to really understand every step of the process. When I was at TIAA CREF, we were on Taleo at the time, and I had a system admin on my team, but I went through system admin training because I need to understand. Many leaders might say, oh, just create another field in the ATS to solve for this, but they don't necessarily understand the implications of all of that. So,
Mm.
growing up in the TA ops world, I understand when I'm asking for something or I have an idea for something, really being able to understand all the different ways that one thing that might seem so small might have upstream and downstream impacts. Plus, growing up in recruiting and having that like contract recruiting experience in between it all really has helped me. I always try and have a couple recs that I do throughout the year because it helps me keep my thumb on things. I don't want to implement something that I just push on the recruiters. I want to be able to understand what they're going through and what the recruiter experience is. So I'm always looking at the recruiter experience, the hiring manager experience, and the candidate experience. And how do we implement things within the TA function? How do we transform things that can appease those 3 audiences? You're never gonna be able to win to have everybody 100% satisfied. Uh, that's
That's the
Nirvana,
truth.
baby.
So, just think back to kind of when you started in recruitment and now. Obviously, there's been massive difference with like the tech and all of that. That's clear. But what are maybe some things that you think have not changed? Like you think about like day one in recruiting to now as a recruiter. Like, is there anything that just has not changed at all in that time?
A lot, unfortunately. Like the
uh,
resume, right? Or the
right.
job
Yeah.
description. We'll start with the job description. Maury Hannigan had made a comment years ago around the job description being like if you're buying a car, the job description is the window sticker. And some people love that. They want to see the 50 bullets.
Yeah.
Said no one ever. But what you want to sell is more of the, someone driving. What's it feel like to actually drive the car? I mean, the
Yeah.
window sticker is important, but I don't feel like we job descriptions have come far enough away, and then just the resume and the basic how the ATSs are ingesting the resume. I think we're finally starting to see maybe a little more innovation around some of that, but the like basic premise of job description, resume, and the long lists of things
Yeah.
has not evolved in the way that I think it should have.
I remember back when I had some of my like earlier recruiter training, we had Lou Adler's recruiting training. It was like performance based hiring. And one of the biggest takeaways I had from that training was he just talked about job descriptions, never describing the job and always describing like the credentials of the person they want to, 5 years experience in this. It kind of, that was like my first like mind blowing moment of, yeah, whenever I look at these job descriptions, it does end up just being a laundry list of, things we want in a person versus like really describing the work and the job. And I think of things like a day in the life video, right? Like, why are those videos so popular? Well, because people actually want to see what a job looks like. And, I think more of the employer branding teams have kind of gotten a hold of that to a certain extent. But there's something in that where, like, I just want to know, like, what am I going to be doing? What's the work going to be like? What's the team going to be like? And on the flip side, it's the same thing with the resume because most people are basing their resume on a job description. So it's like, and I hear the advice from career coaches on TikTok saying, "Hey, just take copy paste the job description, put it in a chat GPT, put your resume in a chat GPT, and then ask it to like make a perfect resume so the ATS like picks your resume. And in my head, I just go back to that Lou Adler kind of explanation of a job description, just think, yeah, like it's not actually going to be that helpful because it's not describing the job that needs to be done. Whereas, like, I think the hiring manager conversation that we have as recruiters in that intake call, there's so much more information in that call, but a lot of that never gets, like, communicated in that job description or just, even to candidates along the way. But really, that's the nuts and bolts. I mean, how many times we in the intake call going, "Okay, what exactly are you looking for? Who is it? Who would be the ideal person?" They give you all this information that's not on the job description. But people don't know that, right? They I don't think people really understand that document within itself is, it's crazy. And then same with the resume. It's like someone wrote it. Like there's no control. It's like you can write whatever you want on that thing and send it through, and it's just a user generated document. Like it's not verified. It's just words on a piece of paper that someone wrote. So you got the resume and job scale. What about I'm curious about like Canada experience. Like, do you think Canada experience with all the tech, with all the innovation, is it better, worse, same, similar? What are your thoughts?
Some of the tech now, like, I'm worried. And
Yeah.
I like some of the AI tools you mentioned, some of the influencers, right? Do this or use this tech and you can apply to 200 jobs at once. I don't think that in many companies the candidate black hole has improved. In a past employer, when I got there, that black hole from when someone applied until like the first contact was 103 days, like
Whoa.
average. And I
So
like
that's from someone applying just to get like, "Hey, you're not qualified for the just any kind of rejection." 103
So we
days.
put measurements in place around expectations with the recruiters around managing their application volume and managing the connections, right? They should be looking at the resumes and in their recs regularly, and we put metrics on it and got it down under 14 days within a year.
Wow.
So we were
What
able
was
to
some
make a huge impact on that.
what was some of the areas that you were like, "Hey, we're just, burning time or we're not efficient." Like, what were some of the big areas there? I think it'd be helpful.
Well, I think it's important to look at data and things like what's your app to hire ratio. So if you know your app to hire ratio that you need 30 applicants to get 10 phone screens, 4 interviews, etc., then and now this is where the tech might be able to come in if the ATSs are smarter, that you could set it up like maybe you have a 15% leeway, right? So instead of 30, you give yourself, 35 apps
Yeah.
and then it'll unpost it. And and then the recruiter can work through it. Then you're not having these mass loads of applicants coming in for some of these jobs where the recruiter can just never get to it. So AI in these fast applies that are going on where someone can just randomly use AI to apply to 100 jobs in 5 minutes, it's just inundating the recruiters. And then the recruiters are trying to use data management techniques, or maybe the ATSs are helping them now sort through things a little differently, but then candidates are complaining that the robots are auto rejecting them and the recruiters have, too much on their plate from rec management or they aren't doing rec management in a way. And so it's I don't know how we're going to solve for it yet.
The only thing that I this is the only one of the positive kind of characteristics of like an AI screener, right, is if you apply to a job and you know that you're gonna have to do a 30-minute assessment or AI screen or some sort of activity, then in my mind, that is a way to limit the amount of applications you're gonna do. Because if you knew, like, all right, I'm gonna have to spend half an hour on every job that I apply to, because AI gives us that ability now, you're not gonna apply to 100 jobs because there's no way you're gonna have, no way you're gonna spend 50 hours doing those types of things. So I think it's almost like you almost have to like put something in place to screen people to make it a little bit more work, which I know candidates hate to hear, but that's like one thing I think about. And then I think I mean, I work with some of these companies that are like the auto apply companies, and the biggest thing I tell them when they're marketing to consumers is you still have to, if you want people to actually land a job with your tool, you need to coach them on, yes, using the auto apply tool or the tool to like fill out the application to save time on filling out the application, but you need to be marketing it in a way where it's not just like this magic hack that's gonna magically get you a job, but it's a time saving tool where you can strategically pick jobs you want to apply to, and then you can save time by filling out the application. So like
I think
there's
that's
almost
it, right?
there's a
Strategically
duty for
pick the
them.
jobs you want to apply to. I think there's a lot of education that's gaps
Exactly.
with hiring managers around describing the job and or training them on your talent acquisition process and what to expect,
Yeah.
right? The job should not be posted until, from until the person's butt is in the seat. The job should have been taken down a while ago.
Yeah.
And how do you train them on good interviewing skills and describing the day in the life, the what I would call a realistic job preview?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I love
and
that.
can we start with those instead of the job descriptions? Because candidates aren't reading the whole job description and recruiters are not reading the whole resume. They're each scanning it for a couple seconds. And then that's where you get some of the mismatches. Like I've hired for senior recruiters on my team and have people that have no recruiting experience, at least not on their resume or LinkedIn profile applying for the job. And it's slog that recruiters get tied down with kind of going through those candidates that should have never applied to the job. So how do
Yeah.
you educate candidates not just to apply, right? Using that strategic thinking to apply to jobs that they're at least minimally qualified for. And then if
Well,
recruiters can do better rec management, I think that helps bridge some of those gaps.
what's your thought with, okay, like we're talking about minimum qualifications. Like what I've always said, like 60 to 80% qualified, kind of go for it. Maybe in this market, 80% and above, kind of go for it. What's your thinking? Like, how would you kind of coach a job seeker, and like how would they kind of look at a job description, for example, which you already talked about some of like the downsides of a job description, but you have a job description. What should people be looking at to like actually see if they're qualified? Or are there some other things that they should be considering to get a gauge on whether they're qualified? And like what does being qualified for a job mean? Is it like how do you kind of figure that out even?
I think there I don't remember where the study was from or where I saw the stats because it's been a couple years, but there was something that like women will only apply to jobs where they meet like 100% of the requirements on the job, where
Yeah,
men will apply when they have like 60%. And I
yeah,
think it's the truth is probably somewhere in between. You want to be at least minimally qualified, but you want to be well qualified to actually have a chance. And then as a job seeker, for you to stand out, it's not just listing your, what responsibilities on your resume, but really showing the impact that you had to the company and the bottom line. And if
yeah.
you can differentiate yourself that way, that's going to help bring you to the top of the pack.
What do you think recruiters are looking at most? Like when you mentioned they scan their resume, and again, I think this is helpful for job seekers. Like you training a new recruiter and you're saying, "Hey, you got 100 applications to look through." You got whatever 10 to 30 seconds, right, to kind of like look through each one to remain time conscious. What are the most important things that you would have that recruiter kind of take into to account?
I'd have them sort a couple different ways. So first, I'd have them look at internal applicants because it's really important to try and grow your own tomato. And if you can provide growth opportunities within the company that you're working at, then that opens up more entry level opportunities for others. And then you kind of grow people up within your organization and lessen people transitioning out of your company. And then referrals always have placed a high value on referrals. And I think that then brings up the point of how important your network is and not just connecting with people on LinkedIn, but actually trying to get to know them, commenting on any content that they're putting out there, not just putting the thumbs up, but actually make a comment on it. And if you start building some of that goodwill, someone's going to see, oh, Julia just made a couple comments on my last few posts and she sent me a message wanting to have a conversation. I'd be more likely to spend some time. And so building some of that equity with people that you're connecting with and building your community and your network, I think that's really critical. And then there was a third thing that I just lost.
Yes, you got internal, you got like your
Yeah,
the
and
referrals
then
coming
I'd
in.
say thank you. Thank you for helping me circle the wagon there.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of sorting by the skills. I think that when a recruiter's looking at the resume, they're gonna say, I like they know the like 2 most important or 3 most important things for the hiring manager, and they're scanning the resume for those things. And if they find 2 of them, then they might dig in a little further.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's kind of what's happening is they're doing a quick scan, and if they see these couple of things, which I think most people could probably call out in the job posting, right? It could be total number of years experience. It could be a company or industry that you're in that might be similar
Yeah.
to the hiring company. And then it could be key skills. If someone's looking for Java, then they're going to make sure that they've got that. If someone's looking for someone that's done implementations, they're looking for that.
And that's that I mean, that's why I just think automatically job descriptions could be just way better if they just took those like must-haves. You know, it's like we're always trained in those intake calls, like what are the must-haves? Like what are the things that you really need? And the amount of times I've asked that question and then the things that the hiring manager is telling me are just not even on the job description. It's like, okay, it doesn't even
Hmm.
make any sense. That's the immediate one. And then I think to your point, one way that I've always tried to explain to people, you know, when it comes to like really judging if you're qualified for a position, looking at was the last company or one of the companies I worked at, are they in a similar industry or the same industry? Are you competing against that company or have you worked for a competitor and have you done a similar job? And I think it's like a harsh truth, but a very real truth that hiring is a risk game. People don't want to make a bad hire. And right now, I think the skills-based hiring is getting better. Like I know there's some platforms that are really good at like looking at like on the job skills and being able to test that. But without, like, being able to test skills in a moment and do some kinda on the job trial, the only other way that you can really minimize that risk is by looking at what have you done in the past and saying, "Okay, there's a good chance you're gonna be able to repeat that in the future." And so, the default for most hiring managers that I've spoken to is, "I love somebody from XYZ company that's a competitor that's doing a similar job because it's just less work for us. We don't have to train. They know the work. And, you know, sometimes we're even hurting the competition, right? And I think if candidates can grasp that and you can kind of understand that, it's just going to help you, especially in this market where I don't believe that this is the best market right now to like just shoot your shot randomly at companies.
Hmm.
Companies are very selective, especially now they know, hey, we can be picky. We can, you know, we can find those purple squirrels right now because there's a lot of people on the market, a lot of quality people. And so, even though it's a harsh truth and it kind of takes away some of that opportunism, like that you find in the job market, it's helpful to know that because then you can build your resume and you can just understand, like, oh, maybe that's why I didn't get the job, not because the ATS kicked me out, but because in the mind of the hiring manager, I'm just not qualified or I'm too risky, right? And you know, in this day and age right now with where the market's at, it's hard for me to believe that a lot of people are just go, yeah, let's just find someone because we need someone.
Give
Like,
someone their shot. Yeah.
yeah, it's just, that's what it is right now. It's not to say that it couldn't go back to that in the future, but well, look, you've written a book, so by the way, I love the title of the book too, From High to Hard. I love that. What inspired you to write the book and like who would be the ideal, you know, reader of this? Is it for anyone who's looking for a job, certain groups of people? Like tell us about that.
Yeah. So you were asking like what do I think about candidate experience earlier, right? And I was at a conference and someone was talking about the candidate journey from hello to hired. And this is probably 3 or 4 years ago. And I've been a big proponent of the candidate journey and journey mapping and improving the processes that we put in front of candidates and hiring managers, and just having it's been a really cathartic journey to like decompress from high stress corporate America to write the book, and I wanted to give back with my knowledge to job seekers. And I focused this one, it's the Insider Guide to Internships. And I wanted to get this out quickly for college students because Gen Z right now is struggling so much. Their unemployment rate is, higher than new grads and such, are higher than the national average, and a lot of college students are really struggling to find their first jobs. So I wanted to start with them, but really any of my content is for all job seekers, but the book is specific for college students who are interns. So either if you're a college student watching this or you're a parent of a college student, this is a great gift to give your student, and it'll help from a parental perspective. You're giving them the tools to help them be successful. And I'm not giving the quick fixes. I'm really trying to help lay out a job search strategy for students and giving them all the information about what's a recruiter, what's the interview process is like. And the book goes through not just creating your resume and figuring out what kind of internship you want, but even all the way to through to managing one-on-ones with your hiring manager. Or what if your hiring manager is a dad, and salary negotiation and negotiating your offers. It's got everything from that whole candidate journey to setting yourself up for success while you're in the internship to get that job offer from the company after. So it's a little passion project to help the next generation have successful careers and impart some of my knowledge and wisdom and those of others, because I did get insights from other recruiters that I've worked with over the years. And then just putting out some job seeker content to help people because, I've had friends call me like, "Well, you're a recruiter, get me a job at this company." And I was like, "Well, that's not
It's
exactly
the
how it
worst.
works." And so I think educating it from the insider's perspective, as opposed to a lot of people that are putting information out and giving job seekers advice that isn't
Yeah,
really accurate, like, the bots are rejecting your resume just because, which isn't
yeah.
really how ATSs, all the big corporations are not having AI auto reject people. So, just trying to be a counter voice to some of the crap, excuse me, that's out there and give some solid advice for people.
I say it's so important when you're thinking about any type of advice, whether it's advice on how to grow on social media or advice on how to grow a business or advice on how to parent, advice on anything. You really got to look at number one, does the person have experience in what they're talking about? Have they done whatever you're looking to do? Have they studied? Do they have the education? Like all of those things are legitimate, legitimate. But when people don't have that, when they don't have the background, when they don't have the understanding, it's dangerous, right? It's not necessarily dangerous, but it can be dangerous. I think for people when they're taking advice. And one of the things that I've noticed, particularly being a bigger creator on TikTok and Instagram, those 2 platforms, which, that just people do consume a lot of content on there, is just the amount of people that are freely giving advice that they've never sat in any seat, and as far as I can see, sometimes they haven't even really achieved that much, and then they're giving these advices, and I think about that, my favorite one is when people have content like, "Just say this in an interview, and it will guarantee you get the job," and I just think, well, if there's one job and 5 people say it, are they all guaranteed to get the job? No, only one person is. How can you make that claim? So I love when real practitioners are putting out information. Why just before we close here, I'm curious, why is it so hard right now for the new grads? Like, what is going on that's just making it so difficult?
I think that probably several different things. I think AI has taken some of the entry level jobs away. Now, I think it's going to be shifting the types of jobs. So it's not necessarily that they're going away, or that AI's taken over all these jobs, but I think it's different jobs and skills are needed. So, maybe it's not as many software development roles, but maybe there are more prompt engineering roles that are
Yeah.
available. So I think that's one thing. And then just with some of the way that our economy is in our country right now, and there's a lot of uncertainty with things, with tariffs and such, that some companies, like for internships, are either, it might be shrinking the number of interns that they're going to bring on each year, and
Yeah.
or might be kind of slow rolling the hiring. So they might be delaying some hires and not necessarily having a hiring freeze, but slow rolling some of the activity that they might normally do. And so, just playing a little bit of a waiting game to see what's going to happen with the tariffs and such. And I think those are some of the challenges that I'm seeing and hearing.
Yeah. No, 100%.
And
Well,
it's just
look,
more competitive.
it is, and it's, I think the key word that you said, though, was uncertainty, and I think that I mean, I don't think I feel like I've heard that word so much more ever since the pandemic. That was, like, when the word started happening. I remember, I'm uncertain about the future," but it has been like that for the last few
People are
years,
staying
and,
put in jobs, right? They're not leaving.
yeah, job hugging.
Yeah.
That's the new trend. They call it job hugging. It's, crazy. Well, look, we'll put a link for the book in the description. And I'm gonna just, I'll encourage anybody who's listening to this. If you are new grad, you're entry level, obviously this book is for you. If you're looking for a job in general, I would highly recommend getting the book as well. And then if you're a parent of someone who's going to be looking for a job or is right now, pick up a copy of the book. I know there's going to be a ton of valuable information in there. Julia, for you as well, where can people connect with you? Where's the best place for people to find out about you?
So I've got a website, the number two hired.com. And then something else I have, I just want to plug it. I'm testing it. So I can't say it's like brilliant or anything, but I've been training in AI on my content and my voice and my philosophy around like job seeker help. So anyone that's a job seeker or a job seeker, I'm calling it like Coach Julia AI. And you can go there and ask it questions and
Sweet.
find some good answers trained on my 2 decades of experience. But hi2hired.com, recruiting Julia Levy on LinkedIn. And, I love talking TA and I love helping job seekers. So thanks for having me,
Amazing.
Joel.
Yeah, it's been great, and I'm excited. I know this episode will actually have aired after RecFest, but obviously we're before RecFest now. So I was super excited to see you at RecFest as well, and it'll be great to. I'm sure I know every year at RecFest there's some recruiters as well who are kind of looking for work, and I'm sure they're going to find a ton of value as well in the content. So thank you so much for joining me on today's show. And yeah, for anyone who's out there, if you're looking to find out more about Julia, I definitely recommend connecting with her on LinkedIn. Just say, "Hey, I heard you on the Recruiting Is No Joke podcast," and then we will be back next week with another episode as well. So if you want to get involved in the show, just go to www.therealistrecruiter.com. Get a hold of me, DM me on LinkedIn. Always looking for new guests and sponsors and people to get involved in the show. So Julia, thank you again, and we'll
Thank
see you
you.
soon. Yeah, we'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.